my name is Angel. I'm 46 and I got pregnant at 17 and had an abortion.
I'm Alyssa, I'm 24, I got pregnant at 19 and now my son is 4 years old. I got pregnant at 19 right after I moved away for college. I moved about 3 hours away from home, found out I was pregnant, had to call my parents and tell them. It was kind of scary. My boyfriend at the time left for the military, so I was living all alone basically, away from home for the first time. When he came back home, we ended up breaking up, and so my son was about 3 months old, so from then on I actually moved back home and raised my son up there with my family.
It's good that you had family with you.
Yeah, don't know what I would have done without them.
I got pregnant at 17 and I lived with my family, but we were kind of dysfunctional. The thought of bringing a baby into that wasn't a good idea. And although I had wanted to keep my baby and I really considered it, but I ended up going to an abortion clinic and having an abortion. I think in the long run worked out better for me. As like I said, I came from a dysfunctional family and it's something I still haven't addressed with myself. So I don't think I'd be a very good parent. Yeah. I'm a great nanny.
I went to a Catholic school, so it was like pretty much non-existent. I don't want to say it was totally non-existent. Maybe 5-minute talk in health class as sophomores. I do remember my parents had like a quick talk with me too. I was about 16 and my dad took me to like a OBGYN for an appointment so I could go meet with a doctor and have like a private conversation too.
I went to a public school and we had health class in junior high, and you know, they vaguely touch on things, but I don't think it's quite as cohesive as it could be. And a lot of what I picked up was from like, you know, magazines, TV, whatever, talking to friends, or a lot of dirty magazines, quite honestly. Yeah, that it would be better. I mean, you see all these movies and TV shows and everybody's having sex and you're like, that looks like fun.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's not as fun because most of the time your partners aren't going to know what the hell they're doing. So it's like, I have this pregnancy now and it wasn't really worth the fun.
I felt like growing up I was kind of like the last one to the party. Like all my friends are already like way ahead of me. They were hanging out with boys when they were like 13, and I came from like a stricter family, and I was also heavily involved in like cheerleading and stuff, so I was always busy and I didn't really have like the free time to do what my friends were doing. By the time I was like 17 and finally had like freedom of a car, I just felt like I had to like hit the ground running. Like I just had like so much time to make up for.
I was kind of the same way in that I didn't start having sex till I was 17. When I finally had sex with my partner, I expected it to be a little more. But like you, I, you know, like I said, 17 years old, and all of my friends were having sex, you know, in junior high.
Yeah, same. When I was like 16, I started taking the pill. And then I think around like when I first started college, I decided to do the shot. And I think when I ended up getting pregnant, I think I just needed like another shot. And I think I must have been like a week late to go get it or something at the clinic. I was like doing my best. You know, it's just one of those things where I got caught up in life and let it slip my mind for maybe like a week or something, and caught up to me.
Wow, that's so like just a week in between.
Yeah, I think like I had my appointment scheduled and some like work or something came up, so I canceled it and thought I'd come back to it or something. What about you?
I actually did not take any precautions. I did not take birth control until I was older. When I was 17 and when I got pregnant, I was just wild. I don't think the whole time that we were having sex, which was a few months, that we ever used any kind of...
Just took the risk.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of like a common thing that teenagers think they can do.
I think so too. Because you think you're invincible when you're younger and you're like, oh, that's not gonna happen to me. And then all of a sudden you're like, whoops.
And now it did.
My dad had a lot of porno magazines hanging around, so I learned a lot from there, but not really from them. Like even now, they don't really talk about sex a lot, which is
Yeah.
really weird.
My parents were teenage parents, so I think they just tried to like keep me away from all of that, and their like way of keeping me away from it was, and protecting me, was just pretending like it wasn't an option.
I see how well that works.
Yeah, and just completely just ignoring it altogether. We might have talked about it like briefly, maybe 10 minutes out of like my teenage years. I had thought about it a little bit. I kind of had decided that I didn't think that I wanted kids. I just really wanted to like focus on my career and graphic design and kind of move to a bigger city and just really just do my work. Basically, I just wanted to spend my whole life doing that and kind of just exploring and being like a free person.
I just thought about it for like 5 seconds and decided it wasn't for me. I was actually the neighborhood babysitter. I'm like, if these kids are that bad, I don't want to have my own.
Never have a break.
Never have a break. I felt really queasy and it went on for a couple weeks, and I ended up taking a pregnancy test at my house. Mm-hmm. You know it could happen, but you still don't know what the hell to do when it does. You're like, well, now what?
When I was on the shot, like my period was also really irregular, so I didn't really have that to go off of. I think I had just had like some random lower back pain or something random, and my boyfriend at the time, he's the one who actually suggested it. And I was just like, you're wrong, but okay, like I'll just prove you wrong. And then he was right.
I think they were disappointed. They were already in like a weird headspace because my brother had passed away. I don't think that they thought I was going to do such an irresponsible thing. Not that I was ever a responsible child or anything, but they just expected me to be smarter about things. They weren't overly caring or nice about it.
So I kind of had like a similar experience. My parents were kind of shocked. I was really like focused on school. I had just done like 18 credit semesters, so like I was really, really busy with school. I had like 2 jobs, so I think everybody just kind of thought that that was like gonna be my only focus. They definitely weren't like unsupportive, but given like the distance and stuff, I still kind of like felt alone, even if I like kind of had their constant communication. I guess I kind of just knew like right away, just from being like in a Catholic school and pretty strict parents, and they raised me as teenagers, and I just kind of felt that like that's kind of what I knew, that's kind of what people did. I didn't really know like any other option really existed that was okay at that time. Like I just wasn't really educated on other options. Not that I regret my choice at all. I just feel like I wasn't really handed with any other choices. Like I didn't have anything else to consider. The
funny thing is my grandmother on my dad's side is Catholic, very, very Catholic. And then the Mexican family who wanted to take care of me, they're Mormon. So I had all this like religious people that wanted me to keep the child, and I was never ready for it, and the situation just wasn't ideal at all. I don't regret my decision. I do often wonder about it, but for me it couldn't have happened any other way. No, because I didn't really have any at that time. I was undecided as far as, if I was going to go to college or get a job or whatever. And at the time I was working at a grocery store. I didn't have any plans, and the pregnancy didn't really affect it other than taking money. How about you?
Well, I had already done 1 year of college, so I kind of just really wanted to stick with that. I felt like, if I already had 1 year down, I might as well at least stick with that, because that'd be like my fastest track of like some sort of education. It took me a lot longer to get my degree. I had like a year or 2 where I was taking like a half semester or like 2 classes in a semester. I got it in like 5 years, so I ended up doing it longer than most people, but I still stayed on track.
Good job, because I'm a flake.
I almost did. I was so close.
It's something that I didn't deal with for a really long time, and I kind of just disassociated. And I vaguely remember them just telling me to count back from 10. And then when I next came to, apparently I was screaming, but they had found my dad, and he finally came and got me, and he took me home, and he and my mom both took care of me. I am really super grateful that I was able to access that.
After I had given birth, my son was in the NICU. We were actually in separate hospitals. That was kind of a weird process. Since he wasn't with me, I was able to sleep. And so then I had to have like hospital transport me over to see him at his hospital because he's at like a special children's hospital. So that was pretty rough, and like dealing with the whole like NICU experience too. So like on top of already not having anybody near me or like experiencing anything similar, I had like an extra level of having a NICU baby. My family was there. It was flu season, so I was only allowed to let like 2 people in. I only saw doctors and then the 2 people that I had put on like the list. I think where I'm at now, I don't think I would. I mean, my son's 4, so it's really hard because like now he's independent and like he sleeps and he eats and he takes care of himself. I just can't imagine like giving up sleep again. I just can't, like that was just,
Sleep is
yeah.
very, very important.
Like maybe in like 5 years I might change my mind, but for now I'm just happy with just 1.
I'm actually really terrified of the pain because I like my vagina how it is, and I really don't want it like ripped up or, you know, any of that stuff. So if I could have a baby where they just take it out without too much fuss, I probably would. The myth is that it can't happen to you, but it can, obviously, and it can happen at any time.
Another thing that I experienced going through it was how many friends you lose. I guess you don't really think about it like as you're pregnant, but you get excluded from a lot of like teenage experiences. And you always think like, oh, they're my best friend, they'll always invite me. You never really realize that it's just kind of almost impossible just to keep that same like teenage experience alive. And no matter how hard you try, you still kind of just fall out of it. Be smarter, educate yourself more before you really think you know everything as a kid without like any research. Like don't just go off of what people say on like movies and your friends, like just really like look into it yourself, I guess, and like research, educate yourself.
I agree. And also be more aware of your pleasure than his. I can't say that my life is good or bad. It is what it is. I've dealt with a lot of even before then and after. And I think had I had a child, it would have been even worse. I think right now, for where I am right this second, it was the best choice.
I think it was really hard in the beginning, but I think where I've made it to now, my son's 4 years old. He's in school, he's doing pretty well. I graduated college. I'm older and I'm stable, and I definitely think that like for myself, I made a good choice and I was able to handle it as well as I could and didn't really let it like derail me for too long to where I wasn't able to like recover.
You're a badass.
I try.
I think this was a great experience. I'm grateful to talk to you, and I think you're an amazing person. You definitely inspired me in my like flaky ass, that's for sure.
I really enjoyed like hearing your story and learning what like the other side, I guess, what that experience is like. It's really like eye-opening just kind of to hear that, you know, there are other options if you do feel like raising a child isn't the best, and your life will definitely still be okay, even if you feel like, you know, you're a lost teenager. I don't know, I like hearing other people's stories, and I really liked hearing yours.
Yeah, I liked hearing yours as well.